I think it's time we ended this. For the past 5 years, there's been a dividing wedge in the world of finance stemming from a heated podcast between two giants of sales training, Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort. But the deeper I look at it, the more I realize they really just represent two different schools of thought on how sales should work. And that's why I've decided to become the bridge between the two approaches in the light of some of the things that Grant and Jordan have said. Remember, this is not financial advice, but subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this and take a look at the pivotal moment from the 2019 podcast before I tell you more about it.
What's the stuff about being unreasonable? Like when you say, if you want to just be unreasonable, like not stop, but what if they don't want it? What's the fine line?
Oh, you saw the unreasonable. You're like the follow up.
No. I mean, like, okay, so you have two types of people. You have buyers and non-buyers, right? Like, what do you mean?
No, I don't believe that. I think they're all buyers.
You think everyone's a buyer?
Every person, every human being you meet is going to buy something.
Whether
they might not buy my fish, but then they're going to buy insurance or they're going to buy groceries. Or they're all buyers.
But what you're selling fish, though?
In that case, I was selling fish, but that does not make them a non-buyer.
Of fish, though, if they
that day, that moment,
right,
that
if they don't. My point is, technically,
every buyer's a buyer.
Okay, so
all I'm looking for is money anyway. Every seller's looking for something. They're looking for money. They don't want to keep what they have. They're looking for money.
So you don't think? Okay, so
I think every buyer's a buyer.
Slow it down for 1 second, all right? Slow it down for a second. You speak almost as fast as me.
You're on the Red Bull. I'm not.
Question, okay? So if you're a salesman, a young salesman out in the field, let's say you're selling insurance, right?
Yeah.
And let's say you knock on someone's door and say, I'm not interested in insurance.
I understand.
Would you keep pushing and pushing and pushing?
No, I totally understand. But I don't believe that they're not interested is an interest level.
Okay.
Not interested is better than before you hit that door and they said they weren't interested. Not interest. No interest is a level of interest.
Okay.
Like if I have no coffee in my house, I'm talking about coffee.
Okay.
Zero, none is a quantity.
I know what Grant Cardone said there tends to grind the gears of some people, including Jordan Belfort, which is why you start to see the conversation start to get heated, but there's something to be said for that, isn't there? The idea that no interest is also a level of interest can be conceptualized more as a pragmatic way of thinking about the sales process. A buyer that says they're not interested is an improvement over a buyer that doesn't even know you exist. And looking at the statistics, perhaps there's some weight to that idea, even for well-versed salesmen. Cold calling procedures, not more than a 2% success rate. That means more than 98% of people that you cold approach will simply shut the door on you or disconnect the call. However, within that 98% is a huge chunk of potential leads that just need to be followed up in order to become slightly more interested. According to a recent study by the sales consulting firm IRC, 80% of all sales are made between the 5th and 12th follow-up. But moving forward, I think this core of talking past each other then eventually led to some friction to the point that this conversation has become a major thaw between those two sales giants even today. Watch what happened next and you'll see why.
So for the salesperson themselves, though, how do you manage that situation? Do you keep trying to push or you go on to the next door?
Well, you definitely want to go. You definitely need a funnel. You definitely need. I mean, the ultimate solution to all sales is to have a lot of people to talk to.
Okay,
it's not some trick.
Right. So if you're cold calling out in the field, right? Let's say you're going door to door. A lot of people do that, right? So whether it's door to door or out on the phone, right? You knock on someone's door, right? Do you believe that you should try to knock on as many doors as possible, try to really go deeper into people who aren't interested, or what's the sweet spot?
No, they should.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's not a trick. I was just what's the sweet spot? How do you know when it's better to not waste your time?
There is no sweet spot.
Okay.
Right? Like, because even if they hit the sweet spot, it's about volume. I mean, there's no success without volume.
Okay.
So anybody that's trying to like come up with the thing is trying to get away from the work.
Right.
And so there's no trick in this game. Like if a person wants to be really successful in sales, real estate, acting, you need a lot of hits. Right. So like, I think everybody's looking for that one thing that gets that in the door and gets that one sale, as opposed to as opposed to, dude, how do I keep calling on the whole neighborhood?
Right.
How do I keep working that neighborhood and then the next neighborhood, and then how do I come back? Because one thing that cold call people do that incorrectly is they canvas cold a neighborhood and they never go back to that neighborhood. But watch, I do. I go back in. So I'm basically following you up.
I think I know where that dividing wedge is between the two different sales strategies. Grant Cardone represents more of a numbers game approach, while Jordan Belfort is known to advocate for nurturing a few individual leads, in something popularized by his straight line technique. In that sense, you can almost imagine their approach as being quantity versus quality, or latitudinal versus longitudinal approach. So while Jordan Belfort's more top-down sales strategy may work on nurtured leads, perhaps there's something to be said for Cardone's sales style of just throwing as many things at the wall to see what sticks. And that's what ties into another difference between both of them that is sometimes overlooked. For someone like Grant Cardone, the idea of upselling is just a tool in his vast arsenal of sales, while Jordan Belfort would rather put that to the back burner until the leads have already been warmed up and sold on something. That's perfectly encapsulated by an objection that Jordan raised against Cardone. What if you're selling a $10,000 product and the prospect just isn't financially capable of making such an outright purchase? Why waste time on such a buyer instead of nurturing more likely buyers? The answer from Cardone is simple: you can't have just a single product that high in price. In other words, you need to create a ladder that moves up to that expensive product using many smaller and cheaper products that get as many buyers on the sales ladder as possible. And I kind of like that idea because it's about giving your leads a taste of what you're selling for cheap instead of overwhelming them with a pitch for such an expensive product. And while that's a second layer of their fundamental disagreement, there also does seem to be a degree of professional jealousy between the two driven by the difference. And that is to the point that they've openly called each other names after the podcast, vowing not to ever speak to each other again.
What is the deal with you and Grant Cardone?
We watched the interview.
Well, I watched the interview. I saw the back and
He's
forth.
just a moron. I mean, he's kind of he's just an idiot, the guy. I mean, right? He's just a moron. I mean, you can look at that. He's a moron. Like, I don't know. Like, we're having a really intelligent conversation here. We both are in the field of persuasion. We're talking about politics. We agree on some stuff. We don't agree on some stuff. But we always say intelligent things to each other.
Yeah.
I can respect what you say and not agree with it and still argue back and forth. He was saying things that were like unintelligible. I mean, he's created the greatest memes for me. Like on my thing, whatever they'll say, got some fish on this podcast.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of research, and I found that you did an interview with Jordan Belfort, aka the Wolf of Wall Street. And this turned into the equivalent of like a rap beef with finance guys afterwards. Is that a fair assessment of what happened?
Well, he's not a finance guy.
Well, I mean, a financial guy.
He's not a financial guy. He's a criminal. He's a convicted criminal that didn't pay back the people he ripped off. And he's a rat. On top of being a criminal, he's a rat. Turned on his own people to reduce his time. So he's a criminal, ripped off a bunch of people, admits that he ripped off a bunch of people, never paid the people back, and ratted out his boys.
That's certainly tough. I think the entire conversation they had was a massively missed opportunity because both of them knew what they were signing up for before the podcast. Right now, while their very public animosity is sometimes flared back up on social media, it has relatively taken a backseat. As to why that conversation went so far off the tracks, Grant Cardone was recently asked about it, and we got to see a degree of indifference to him that's probably mirrored by Jordan Belfort as well.
I'll tell you what I did wrong, okay? I always went after the category leader.
Yeah.
And I confronted them because I was into scarcity. I'm like, I got to hit a guy hard. So you've seen me on interviews before where I go in, I'm very aggressive.
Yeah.
It was the wrong Grant. Okay, it was the wrong version of Grant. It was a very scarce Grant. Now, that being said, if you study very, very successful people back into the J.P. Morgans, the Rockefellers, no, I'm not comparing myself to those people, but those guys were Vanderbilts. These guys were very aggressive. They were born out of scarcity. If you saw the interview with, I'm not going to even mention his name because I don't respect him, about not interested. If somebody says they're not interested, they are. Not interest is a level of interest.
That was a tense interview. You don't want to mention the name?
It's a level of interest. Not interest is a level of interest. 0 is a number. I don't know why this is so complicated for people.
Can I mention the name?
No, whatever. You don't need to, but it doesn't matter. But again, you see, I went in, that didn't need to be that aggressive.
It was tense. Yeah,
I didn't need to be that aggressive. I didn't need to be so stuck on that, but I'm still stuck on it 4 years later because I'm like, don't you guys understand that no sunglasses is a number of sunglasses?
With all of those traded blows, perhaps both of them have shut the door on another conversation in the future, but I'm sure a lot of people would love to see them go head to head and challenge each other's sales strategies and records once again. Let me know in the comments if you would too, because even apart from their differences, there's no doubt that there's a lot to be gleaned for someone who's new to the game, sales, and needs every bit of advice they can get. Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort are two names that are best positioned to make that happen.